Hello, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the brand new Coach by Matthews podcast. If you're new to following us, we're husband and wife, personal training and online coaching duo. Kelly is an online coach in the women's health game, and me, Mike, I focus more on coaching on the gym floor for one-to-one personal training sessions. I think we're going to call this podcast the Let's Talk podcast because the same is our daily email newsletter that we send out, which of course you can sign up to by going to the link in the notes below. Or you can find us on social media, which is mikematthews.pt or kellymatthews.pt. Right, let's get into it. Mrs. Matthews, hello.
Hello.
So the idea of this first podcast is to give you guys, the listeners, a bit of a window into who we are, what we do, and where we came from. Earlier today, we flipped a coin. Who was going to ask and who was going to answer? Kelly won. So today is all about Kelly.
As usual.
Just how she likes it. So I guess before anything, tell us about yourself. What would we know you best for? What you're passionate about? And give us a random fact that not many people know about you.
Okay. So as you already said in the introduction, I am an online coach, personal trainer, focusing on women's health mostly. But I also have an interest in autoimmune diseases and sort of chronic pain conditions as well. I'm also a Pilates instructor, which I would say is probably my first love. Not so much doing anything face to face at the moment, but something to get back into. So I think most people would probably know me from the Pilates world, more so than the online coaching. And a fact about myself that people might not know about outside of maybe my close friends, is that I am a pretty good rapper.
I can attest to this.
Yeah, so I can't freestyle rap, I'm not Eminem. I can't just come out with it. But I can rap along with many a song quite well, I'd like to add.
As I witnessed on one of our first dates,
you
were driving me down Exmouth seafront and a certain song came on and I was sat in the passenger seat and just the look of amazement on my face when you start spitting bars. So yes,
absolutely.
I agree with you there. Right, let's go back to the beginning then. When you were younger, back in your school days, tell me about your childhood and your journey that got you to where you are today.
So I'm an only child, so didn't really have anyone else to contend with when it came to sort of family life and things like that. I don't really feel like there's too much to say, really. I can't really remember most of it. I don't know if that's my brain blocking things out or, my memory's just not very good. But I guess the main things were the fact that I was an only child. My dad was in the military until I was about 6. So I don't really remember a lot of that time. My parents got divorced when I was about 11. So sort of lots of toing and froing between houses. But there was always love and support. I didn't really have to worry about arguments or any hostile environment.
2 Christmases, lots of presents.
Yeah, well, actually, to start with, at least, whilst neither of my parents had got together with anyone else, we actually still did Christmas together.
That's nice.
So yeah, it was still sort of the 3 of us, and then any grandparents or whatever that were knocking about. But yeah, no double presents. Unfortunately, it was still all the presents addressed from both of them.
So moving from childhood then into, let's say, your teenage years, into your early 20s, your working life. Tell us about that. Give us a bit of a window into that as well.
So I did a couple of sort of entry level jobs, nothing overly special or worth mentioning, I wouldn't have thought. I decided around the time that I was doing my A-levels that I thought it would be a really good idea to go into law. So I needed an extra A-level, and I read the syllabus for the law course, and I thought, actually, that sounds pretty interesting. Lots of criminal-based stuff, which is always the most interesting, isn't it? So I thought, why not? Let's just see how it is for a year. I can always drop it after the second year if I want to. And somehow ended up finding it quite interesting. And I thought, hey, here's a career path that I could go down. And so that's what I did. I went in on an admin level job, sort of general administrator, covering different areas within the firm, the legal firm that I went into. I didn't go to uni. I studied on the side. So I worked full time and then did my legal course on the side, which I probably wouldn't recommend because it's a lot. But yeah, and then I suddenly found myself thrown into the legal sector, the legal world, and just gradually worked my way up through the ranks, basically.
And how long were you working in law for?
It was just short of 10 years.
You enjoyed it that much?
Yeah. Not the term I would use to describe it, but yeah.
So a lot of people listening may be working in law or working in corporate, let's say. So I'd really like to dig into your time working in the corporate world. So yeah, tell me about it. What was it like for you working in the corporate world?
In a word, hideous. But I do wonder how much I sort of remember it in a slightly different way now that I'm not in that space anymore. I know now that it wasn't the space for me. But I think sometimes you just have to go through those things to understand what actually doesn't work for you and where, you actually don't want to be. So I actually started in legal insurance. So when you sort of buy a policy for your house insurance or car insurance or anything like that, you have an optional add-on for legal expenses insurance, which covers you for things like contract disputes or employment disputes or anything like that. And that's the work that I started doing quite early on. And it's tricky because, they're not paying for your services as such. They've paid for their insurance, and that will provide you with a certain level of cover, provided that you have a claim that's worth pursuing. And it can be quite emotional. It's highly emotive in the legal world, with a lot of the stuff that I was doing anyway. And actually, you tend to find that when people are getting things for free, quotation marks, their behavior is much worse than if they were paying the hourly rate. And the way you get treated is not great sometimes. Not all the time, but there is a tendency to have to deal with quite a lot of rudeness. And then I sort of moved into some slightly different work around court protection, probate disputes, all that kind of thing, which again, highly emotive, but it tends to be where a lot of the interesting work is, if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in. But it's not always a great space to be in terms of how stressful it is. It's a lot of high stress, deadlines, trying to keep people happy. And the legal insurance work was high volume. So each person would probably have at least 100 cases to their name.
So I imagine there's quite a lot of resilience you had to develop there. Yeah,
totally. And I think it just comes with experience, and over time you just start to build up that resilience, or at least I thought that I had. But I think it's very easy to sort of just shove those emotions down and be like, it's fine, and just crack on with it, when actually you need to stop and actually look at what's going on and whether what you're doing is right, whether this is the right thing for you, and whether actually you do need to speak up and, tell people how you're feeling when you're reaching burnout.
Yeah, definitely. How was the How is the work-life balance working in the legal sector?
It was tricky. You know, when you're in that environment and it's the private sector, you do get paid well. And, you know, the more you earn, the more of an expectation there is that you will stay late, do extra, you know, all that kind of thing, because your responsibility reflects your wage. And, you know, especially when things are busy and there's deadlines, you could find yourself working a lot of extra hours. I know there was a couple of times where I was probably working until 10 or 11 o'clock at night to, you know, get things over the line in terms of deadlines, court deadlines and things like that. And it's not a healthy way to live. And, you know, I saw a lot of people in that sector just be totally wiped out by the stress.
So on reflection, with your 10 years in law, if there was anybody listening to this thinking about going to university in September and maybe studying law, getting into that lifestyle, getting into that corporate world, what would you tell them?
I mean, look, it's not for everyone. It wasn't for me. And I would not, if I had children, I would not encourage them to move into the legal sector. But it works for some people. There's plenty of people that work in the legal world and are perfectly happy. So if I based it on my experience, I would say don't do it. If I was being totally honest. But, you know, there are people that have built their careers in the legal sector and absolutely love it. And, you know, you don't necessarily know how it's going to feel for you until you've done it. But you do tend to find there is a pattern of people that have been in the legal world or other high stress corporate jobs will leave and then become things like Pilates and yoga instructors. And they tend to move into a totally different space. So I don't know, I guess you kind of have to see how it fits for you. But what I would say is that if you're not enjoying it and it doesn't feel right, leave. Don't wait for 10 years. Get out once you've realised that it's not for you.
After your first 100 burnouts, get out.
Yeah,
That's
totally, yeah.
So you spent a good time in corporate. And then what's the transition between working in corporate and then finding your love and teaching Pilates? What got you to that stage?
So it was when I was in a burnout episode. And I think the timing was around when I had sort of just come out of a relationship as well. So I was spending a lot of time sort of I say in the gym, in fitness classes, actually, just trying to keep myself busy, distract myself and try and make myself feel better and just get a little endorphin boost, I guess. And I was going to classes really regularly. Like on a Saturday morning, I'd do 3 back to back. And I loved it. I couldn't do it now, I don't think. But I was in one of the classes and one of the instructors, who I knew anyway, approached me at the end and sort of said, I think you'd be really good at this, like seeing how you move and your form and, you know, you can count the music and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's something that you'd be really good at. Have you ever considered it? Which I hadn't. And then I just decided to go for it. And I started teaching classes at the gym and just absolutely loved it. And I was doing that alongside my corporate role as well.
Nice. So what particular classes was it you were teaching at the time? It wasn't just Pilates.
No, so I actually started with Les Mills classes. So body pump was the one that I started with, which I still love to this day. I just think it's so much fun. And yes, you know, it is structured and you're doing someone else's routine. But actually at the time that worked for me quite well. And then I moved into body balance as well. So I was teaching both of those. Not really a natural body balancer because I'm not a natural yogi, although it's a bit of an infusion of different types of exercise. But body pump was always the one that I loved the most. And then just over time, really, I didn't really know much about Pilates probably until lockdown or just before lockdown, potentially. And I started going to a class and really enjoyed it. And then I was doing some through lockdown and decided to go ahead and do my Pilates teacher training. I'm kind of one of those people that I'll do something and I'll love it and I'll decide that I want to train in it straight away. So I just went for it, and then that's how all that came about.
So if somebody was new to the gym, say where is it now? We're end of January now. So somebody's new to the gym going into the February and they want to start doing some group exercise classes. What would your biggest takeaway be that you could offer to a newbie going to the gym? What kind of thing can they expect? What should they look out for? What can they get from group exercise?
I think group exercise is great. And, you'll get a lot of people in that go to the gym that will sort of poo-poo it a bit. But I actually think it's brilliant, like, especially if you're new to that kind of environment. I think the good thing about group exercise is when you go in, everyone's doing the same thing. So I think there's less ego in a class because, you're all doing the same exercise. Everyone's in the same boat, as it were. And I think it's a nice place for a newbie to start. I would say that if you're new going into a class, just go and have a chat with the instructor and just explain to them that you're new and you've never done it before, especially if it's a class where you need lots of equipment like body pump, and they can help you set it up and sort of give you some guidance on what weights you need and things like that. And especially if you've got any health conditions or anything that they might need to know about, just to ensure that you're moving safely. They can give you modifications if you need them. But the biggest thing is just going in and just not having an ego, really. Just go in and experience lots of different classes because there'll be some that you like and some that you don't, some instructors that you like and some that you don't. So you just have to find who's right for you and which exercise you enjoy the most.
And of course, safety in numbers. So if you are lacking confidence, take a friend.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So fast forward a couple of years to now, you bumped into this amazing guy who changed your life.
Yeah, and then I met you.
So on our first date, I think it was our first date, I remember you talking to me and telling me about things you wanted to achieve and what you wanted to work towards and your love of Pilates. And then it seems somewhere down the line, you've actually achieved what you said, which was really good. At the time, we didn't realize what you were going to be working towards, but you founded your first company, which was
called The Wellbeing Shed.
The Wellbeing Shed. Tell me about The Wellbeing Shed. Tell me about the journey since founding The Wellbeing Shed, what The Wellbeing Shed was about.
So The Wellbeing Shed was primarily for Pilates. So I was teaching face-to-face classes whilst still working in the corporate world. So I would work full time and then I got up to teaching 5 classes a week. So that was where I would spend my evenings, just teaching. And it was great. It was hard because, I was working for myself. So I needed to find my own clients. I was renting space, finding my own clients to come along to the classes instead of teaching at a gym or something like that, where people basically book on and they find their clients for you. So it was hard in terms of like the marketing and advertising side of things. But all of the clients were brilliant. And we had such a good time together. And yeah, I got to the point where, surprise, surprise, I burnt out because I was working full time, teaching 5 classes a week, and I couldn't maintain it. And then, as you know, because you're part of the two of us, we then had a miscarriage and I needed to take a break from teaching because of that. And also I just got to the point where I just really needed a break from something. And unfortunately, got a mortgage to pay. So I had to keep the full-time corporate job and set aside the Pilates so I could basically recover from that incident, if that's what you want to call it, and also from my burnout as well.
And then that led you into into another quest where you were looking at studying your personal training qualification. And with our experience with the miscarriage, this is where the passion of helping women through their women's health journey, menopause journey, and all things in the women's health space. So tell me a little bit about that. Expand on that a bit for me.
I think so. I did the personal training qualification because I thought it was good to have alongside the Pilates. I thought they probably went hand in hand together, and it was good to have that level of knowledge that you'd learn on your PT course to implement into the Pilates classes. I never actually thought that I'd end up really using it as a sort of standalone qualification. So I never really thought that I would move into personal training. But I think it's something that I found quite interesting, and it fits with everything that I'm trying to achieve, I guess. And I notice whilst going through that experience with the loss, and just various other things as well, sort of within, I guess, my medical history, was the way that women are treated when it comes to their health conditions. Things that are very specific to women, like menopause, PCOS, pregnancy, and actually autoimmune conditions, which mostly affect women more so than men. And just that difference between how a woman is treated when they walk into the doctors compared to how a man might be treated. And actually that women are not just smaller versions of men. There are things that we need to do differently, or, we might need to do things in a certain way in order for it to benefit us as women. So I think I just found the whole thing really interesting, and actually wanted to turn a potentially negative experience into more of a positive thing that then I could hopefully just help others with.
Amazing. Yeah. And I've got to say, I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but I've got to say I think you've massively done that. You've really used that traumatic negative experience and, turned it to your advantage, which is fantastic. So you're in the online women's health space. Is there anyone in particular that you look up to in your field of work, and why them?
I think one of the main ones for me probably is Holly Grant, who's a Pilates instructor. She specializes in pre and postnatal mostly, but she's got a couple of studios and things like that around the London area. And I think the reason that I like her so much is because she's just really real. It's not like an aesthetic look at how amazing I am when I do Pilates and how I move. It's about being real, and it's about being honest with people and using humor. And I resonate with that. And I think we've probably got quite a similar teaching style as well. So yeah, I guess I can relate, aside from the fact I don't have any children. And, but yeah, just the way that she presents herself and the way that she teaches, I can see a similarity there between us. And, she's helping women every day in what she does as well. Definitely
somebody to look up to as well. So we've covered your background. We've covered what you're doing at the moment. What's next? What's in the pipeline for you? What are you working towards at the moment?
I want to start building up the Pilates a little bit more. So it's kind of fallen by the wayside for a bit, as I said previously. And I moved a little bit more into the personal training, online coaching space. But I would really like to ramp up the Pilates again. So starting to film more for the YouTube channel and put out some more Pilates related content, get back to teaching face-to-face classes. I genuinely think that everyone should be doing Pilates, whether you're male or female. So it'd just be great to start helping people realize how brilliant Pilates is and how much it can benefit them.
Fantastic. And finally, we love a bit of self-reflection, don't we? So what is the number one obstacle you would say is in your way at the minute to stopping you take that next step?
I think a lot of the issue for me is around brain fog. So just as a result of my autoimmunity and chronic pain condition, my brain doesn't necessarily work in the same way that it used to. And I do struggle with words and trying to actually just engage my brain with thinking about what I need to do and, coming up with new ideas and keeping people engaged and things like that. So I think the biggest obstacle for me at the moment is brain fog, which I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to as well.
I'm sure they can. Kelly, thank you very much for your time today. And once again, tell everybody who's listening how they can find you if they want to reach out to you for any questions.
So I am on Instagram at kellymatthews.pt and on Facebook, Kelly Matthews PT as well. And I'm also on YouTube. So the YouTube channel where there's loads of free Pilates classes that you can try, which is Kelly Matthews PT and Pilates. So it'd be really great to hear from anyone if they've got any questions or, great to hear from people.
Definitely. Hit Kelly up, guys. And again, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me to my own podcast.
It's the first one.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'd love you to all leave a review and share and tag us on your socials. It'll mean more than you know. Stay safe, be good. And if you can't be good, be smart. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.